Hello, fellow warriors. Welcome to another episode of Divided, Survived, and Thriving. I am Lila Aiken Ali, a divorcee, a divorce coach, and the founder of Split FYI, which is an online divorce community with like minded and kindred spirits, rich in resources and information for anyone going through divorce or separation. So, as some of you know, I love interviewing badass humans who have not only survived divorce, but have come out the other side, took control of their lives, and rewrote their story. These conversations are about turning the painful process of divorce into a force in their life, a positive force. So, I get to host so many stories of resilience, passion, grit, familiarity, grace, and survival. This is a great place to feel understood, motivated, and in community. So stories are our reminder that no matter how hard it gets, you can get through it. So, and we learn so much from it, and we heal and embrace our journey ahead. So, without further ado, my guest today is the lovely Sarah Seed, who is a self-development expert and coach for empaths and highly sensitive women. Sarah went through divorce at the age of 24 after walking down the aisle at the age of 19 so that she could please her parents who raised her in a cult. Later in life, Sarah found herself having to leave a long term relationship of 10 years with two small children and no parental support or even a penny to her name. And she realized she recreated her past with a cult within a cult environment, only disguised in a partnership. So today we will dive into her story and begin to understand, her and the courage and superpower that she has. We will learn how to recreate and how to leave behind certain things and heal from them. Self journey, self discovery. Thank you, Sarah, for being with us today.
Thank you, Lila, for the opportunity. It's lovely to be here.
Well, and the fact that you're willing to share the story, and I know we spoke earlier and I got to know you, thank goodness for social media because, I've got to meet some amazing, amazing people through social media, and you're one of them. And your story is profound. There is now not everybody has been raised in a cult, but there's a lot of similarity in that cult environment that people can relate to. Especially in what I was thinking was when you were explaining it to me, and we'll dive into this, but it really felt like, just a suppressed environment. And a lot of people grow up in those suppressed environments and end up doing things for others rather than for themselves. Right. So we'll dive into that. Can we just start from the beginning and maybe give me a little bit of insight, our viewers, some insight of how did you leave a cult? And let's start from there.
Okay, so being brought up in a cult, obviously you don't know anything different. So it just becomes your world.
Mm-hmm.
You are very controlled, very manipulated. My community was the world. So
Right.
even friends at school, I could only see at school, couldn't see them outside of school. Couldn't do any after school activities. My world was what my parents shaped my world to be, which was the community, the cult. So right from being a little girl, didn't celebrate Christmas or birthdays either. And it was all I knew. So I didn't know any different.
Right.
And I think the strongest thing is the brainwashing that happens, that you feel that you're unworthy unless you're pleasing.
Right.
Unless you're pleasing God, unless you're pleasing your parents, unless you're pleasing the people in the community, you are unworthy, you're judged.
Right. And so you're pleasing everyone else but yourself.
Yeah, and I think that was my life as a child.
Right.
Yeah, because every time I rebelled or did something for Sarah, that had massive consequences. Yeah.
So I know you left when you were 19. I mean, you left when you were 22, but you got married when you were 19. And so how did that feel? Because I know we discussed that. And I think that's a poignant part in your life and your self discovery as well.
Yeah, so at the age of 19, I got married into the cult to somebody that was very respected. His family was very deeply respected within the cult. So to marry into his world was very big. And
Right.
that made my parents very proud. And I only got married to him to please my parents because the rest of my brothers and sisters had left. And I felt it was down to me to be the source of everything they desired, grandchildren raised in the cult, and to be part of this big community. And I still remember walking down the aisle. It gets me quite emotional when I think about it, because I walked down the aisle literally saying to myself, my life is over. My life is over. On the day that you're getting married,
Right.
my life is over. Your life is now about everybody else, Sarah. And I remember actually saying that to myself walking down the aisle to my husband to be. So yeah, it was. Well, I describe it as self-immolation. It's literally killing yourself off for others. And that's what a lot of my work is around with women, where the sacrifice that we do for
Right.
others, whether that's in relationship or for other people, for sometimes for our
Hmm.
kids, whatever it is, it's putting your own needs last to the point
Hmm.
where you lose yourself completely. I didn't know who Sarah was. I
Right.
had no idea who Sarah was.
And how could you have, right? I mean, you were in this suppressed environment. Plus, when you're doing the right thing all the time and you're constantly doing the right thing, why would you second guess yourself, right? But
Exactly.
interesting that right before you get married, walking down that aisle is when it was almost your aha moment where you're like,
Yeah.
this, I need more. This is the end of me, not the beginning of me.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is to trust the red flags and to trust your intuition. And I've had to learn the lesson the hard way over the years in relationship. But my intuition was strong as a child, but I kept ignoring it and it kept getting knocked out of me. Even 6 months before I was getting married, I remember saying to my parents, "This is not right. I can't do this." And everybody convinced me, "No, Sarah, it's the right thing to do." And so there were little tiny whispers.
Hmm.
Um, I always say, and what I share with my clients is, trust the whispers before they become screams,
I
because
like that.
at some point they will become screams. And I got married, and within 2 3 years those whispers became screams, and you can't silence the screams once they become screams.
No. And so you decided to leave, and that must have been the hardest. I mean, everything is stacked against you. You're completely alone. It's the wrong thing to do. So please tell us how that happened and how that went down.
Yeah, so that was probably one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life.
Yeah.
I actually think leaving the long-term relationship later on with 2 kids was probably the hardest, because there's 2 little ones involved. But
Right.
I would say these two have been the biggest, toughest, most incredibly hard decisions where I've almost backed out and not done it. Um, but I'd reached a point internally where I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live a lie. I couldn't pretend to be something that I wasn't. The only way I can describe it is I felt like I was an actress playing out a part,
Hmm.
and I almost was looking down on myself
Right.
playing that part out to please others. And when I got to that point where I kept watching myself do the things that everybody else wanted me to do, I got to this point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And I decided to leave. And when you leave everything.
Right.
So when you make that choice, you not only leave your partner and the cult, but you are shunned from everything you've known from being a little girl. So the day I told my parents that I was leaving, I was sat at one of their conventions, and my dad just stony faced. My mum just sat sobbing, and my dad just said, "If you do this, Sarah, I'll never speak to you again." And it was a really, really tough time, really tough, probably the toughest time I've ever been through, because I had that on one side, the emotional blackmail, I guess. That's looking back, it was emotional blackmail.
Yeah.
Um, but I also was heavily manipulated by the elders of the cult at the time.
Right.
They came to my house, and for 3 hours 4 of them against me. And I did not have any self-esteem or real courage at the time, or confidence. I obviously did have the courage, but not the real confidence to kind of answer back. But they sat for 3 hours showing me scripture after scripture as to why my life would be a mess. I would never find happiness. I would never find true love. I would be punished. God will never forgive me. It was awful, awful.
I mean, I can't even imagine, to be honest with you. It's
It was horrible.
yeah. Well, also, there's like a sense of abandonment because the parents brought you into this world are abandoning you. I mean, they're telling you that basically this is more important than you are, and that
I think
is
that's
so
that's
hard.
been the hardest thing. That's took a lot of healing work, a lot of forgiveness, especially when you've got your own children. To then think, how can you do that? Because I could not imagine doing that to mine, no matter what. Um,
But they seem, and this is the only thing, and it seems to me that they were so indoctrined by all of it that when you become that way and you become brainwashed, so to speak, even though you're doing the brainwashing, they're brainwashed themselves. So it's like when you don't even realize that. I mean, this is what you know, they stay in the lane,
yeah,
right? And they
yeah,
believe it. They believe the things they're telling you, i.e., that God will not forgive you and you will never find this, and they feel that they'll be punished.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
the only way to look at it, I guess, to understand how parents could do something like that.
yeah. Absolutely. And it's kind of having to learn to let go of those things and forgive and move on. But yeah, it was incredibly tough. And when you leave, as I say, you leave everything. So friends that you'd had all your life literally will cross the street rather than speak to you.
I
Um, it was really tough, but I also believe that it shaped who I've become, and it gave me a lot of empathy for other people.
for sure.
Definitely, like
Well, I mean, your identity was that. You're now finding who you are, right? Because your identity and who you are was not the cult, right? So all of a sudden you're flourishing, and as hard as it is that your friends that you knew all your life wouldn't say anything to you, in the end of the day, they did you a favor because it allowed you to go explore, to say, okay, who am I without that, without them, right?
absolutely, yeah,
Oh, but so hard. I can't even imagine, honestly, at the age of 22. I mean, this is where, most people are just having a lot of fun. But we'll get to that because I know,
yeah.
yes.
I was
So,
just going to come to that. I was like, because I
yeah,
wasn't flourishing when I left.
let's get into that because this is, I find interesting, in my line of work. This is something in this next phase of your life is mirrored a lot in when people also divorce because want to get out there. And so please tell us, after you leave, what did you decide to do?
Yeah, so I think I definitely didn't flourish. What I did and what I share with people that work with me, women that work with me, is I think we go into a stage of distraction, deception,
Mhm.
um, sometimes binging on things because we don't want to deal with the pain. So we suppress the pain
Right.
through sex, through alcohol, through binge eating, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And that was what I did. I mean, you imagine I'd been suppressed from the age of like 2, 3 to 22.
Right.
Suddenly, my God, this girl's free.
Right.
And freedom is one of my deepest core values. I didn't realize that at the time, but it is one of my deepest core values. So I think suddenly I had all this freedom. I went crazy.
Re-
Like I
I
went wild, girl.
bet. I can imagine. I mean, most people are like just coming down off of the craziness, at that age, but no, I mean,
Yeah,
you're just finding it. So,
I definitely went wild, probably right into my early 30s. I mean, it lasted a long time. It lasted a good few years. But I think I had to do it. I almost had to go through that because I'd never done that as a teenager as well.
right.
So it was that rebellious. I was a rebel. I was an absolute rebel, and I went incredibly wild. But I know now, looking back, I was in a place of distraction, deception, suppression in a different way. I was
Right.
suppressing the pain. I was
Right.
suppressing what had happened. I often call it like Pandora's box. We don't want to go there.
No,
We don't want to open the box.
you don't want to feel
Women
it.
I work with don't want to open the box
Yeah.
initially, but you have to open the box and you have to work through it
You
to
got to
get to
feel
where you
it.
want to be.
You have to feel it. You have to feel what it felt like and what it feels like that your parents abandoned you. You have to
Yeah.
feel the fact that you've been suppressed for so long in all those years. Those are the feelings you have to feel instead of just like, okay, I'm free, which is also okay too. And I always say that. I was like, you've got to take your time but come out of it.
Yeah.
Do it for as long as you need it, but come out of it.
Yeah.
Remember that you can't hide from it any
Yeah.
longer, right?
You can't
So,
hide from it. Definitely not. It's going to come back at some point. It'll come back either in relationship to another. Um, it'll come back in some issues
right.
somewhere along the line, which is what happened to me, definitely.
So yeah, what happened to you after your party days, the genie out of the basket days?
Yeah. So, well, I met the children's dad probably when I think I was around 30. It was a holiday romance. It should have stayed a holiday romance.
Right.
But I think what happened was I was seeking, and I didn't realize this at the time. And this is where I think awareness is the most powerful catalyst for change, because
Sure.
the more aware you are of yourself and who you
Mhm.
are, like really know yourself. People say they know themselves, but do they really know their triggers, their
Right.
sabotage, sabotaging behaviors, their um, all the things, the deeper things, the shadow traits of themselves.
Right.
When you really know yourself, then you can do something different. But I did not know myself, and what I allowed to happen was I went from one suppressed environment
Right.
to another, because inside me internally, I think I was still seeking that security, that
What you knew.
safety, that community, that um loyalty, all the things that I was missing when I left, I was seeking in somebody else instead of within myself.
Mhm.
So
Well, you were
I
sorry, no, I was saying that, we often do that. It's our comfort zone, even though it was a toxic environment. It's your comfort zone. It's what you know. We find what we know and we kind of stick to it. And even though it comes in different forms, in different shapes, or people, or things, or whatever it is, environment. Sometimes it's an environment, right? Whatever it is, you find your comfort zone again. So,
definitely, I 100% agree with this. I think this is why one of my biggest things is get out the comfort zone every day. Do something different. Do something that scares you. Do something that pushes you outside of that comfort zone, because that's where the magic happens. But I think what happens if you go through divorce or a long-term split, you seek you seek that in something, sometimes
right,
rather than ourselves. And that's where I was seeking it subconsciously. I don't think consciously I was, but I was subconsciously seeking that kind of faithful, dependable kind of thing in my life.
hmm,
Which he was. The kid's dad was that person. He was very faithful, dependable. But I went from one suppressed environment to another. What he said went, in what I wore, what the kids' names were, and what how often we did things, where we went.
right,
And I didn't realize that until somebody said to me, you've actually traded one thing for the same kind of thing, Sarah. And it
right.
really hit me like a bullet, that
Hmm.
that's what I'd done. And I couldn't see it until this person said it.
You're
It's
such
a
an
bit of a
aha
shock to the
moment.
system when you get told that.
Right, but you took it in because you were receptible to it,
Mm,
because you deep down inside knew, like subconsciously you knew that's what you were doing.
yeah.
So you were ready to hear something like that, and you needed to. Sometimes we need to hear something that just triggers us. I remember that aha moment I had. So how did you proceed with that? Like, did you talk to yourself through it? What were the ways that you figured that out and how you got out of that situation?
Yeah, I think that actually, I had an internal battle for about 4 years.
Right. Okay.
It was not a decision I made lightly, because I had two
No.
children.
No.
Two children were involved with this
No.
decision. So this was
Exactly.
tough, because it wasn't just me.
Right.
And
Of course.
what I wanted to do, suddenly this was impacting two small children's lives. So
Right.
I had a baby and a 2.5-year-old when I left. So a 6-month old. Sorry, no, he was a little bit older than that when I left. But I had that internal battle for years before I made that choice.
Right.
And I journaled about it for years. So I've still got my journals of the battle internally. I felt so much guilt because and I think lots of women identify with this when they leave a relationship. If it's not bad and if they're not hurting you, you know, physically maybe or whatever,
Right.
you think, who am I to want something different? And, you know, I should just be grateful for what I have.
Right.
But I wasn't happy and I wasn't in love and I had that same environment that I'd had before, but in a different way.
Right.
So it was a really tough call. It took me a few years and a lot of internal battle. And I'll tell you the day that it shifted was I still, and I think when you've been conditioned as a little girl to people please,
Mm-hmm.
I was still people pleasing.
Yep.
So I didn't realize, I didn't know I was doing this, but my life was about pleasing my partner, pleasing his family, being the domestic goddess, having the beautiful home, having
Right.
perfect kids that looked immaculate, that wore the best clothes, looking the part, acting the part, having the fake show reel. And it was on my birthday, and a friend gifted me a 45-minute massage. Now, until that point, I'd never ever stopped, never stopped and thought about me. Maybe in journaling, I'd stopped and said, there must
Right.
be something more, but I never stopped being there for everybody else. And suddenly, this is why I'm passionate about self care. Suddenly, I stopped. For 45 minutes, I stopped, and my brain, instead of thinking about what I was doing and how what I had to do next and all the people I had to please and blah 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 blah,
Right.
I lay on this massage table and I came to that decision on the massage table that Sarah, you're not happy. Sarah, you have to leave him. And I still remember that. I remember that such a strong decision, but it was because I stopped. It was because I
You
stopped
stood
and
still.
listened,
Yeah. You
like
stood
actually
still.
listened to myself.
Well, that is a powerful story, actually, because, and what's interesting is I actually love the fact that you used it was in a massage parlor and you're getting a massage because even better. But, it's one of the things, and I know you say this to your clients, and I say this all the time you cannot make decisions if you're distracted. You cannot make decisions if you're constantly exuberating energy all around you and not for yourself and not thinking. You have to sit in the stillness. You have
Yeah,
to sit there. You have to think about you,
yeah,
not your kids, not your husband, not, your family, not who's going to say, your friends, and what's going to happen. It doesn't matter. It's you, your happiness. That's all that matters because the rest of the people will adjust, especially kids. Your happiness is paramount.
absolutely. I'm such a big believer in that, and I think one of the things I always advise clients to do, and I know I did this with both decisions, was when I left the cult and the partner, I'd gone away for a night on my own
Right.
against what he wanted, against what everybody said I should be doing. I went to my favourite place in Wales. So I live in the UK, and in Wales, there's a place called Battersea Coed, and it's got a waterfall. And I sat by this waterfall, and I went away for the night and thought about it, really thought about it. And I did the same with
Right.
this. I took a day out for me. It's why I love hosting retreats and workshops where that you're gifting women that space to actually come back to themselves and they make those decisions for what they want.
Right.
And that was my guiding point. It was tough leaving. I had a lot of obstacles. He put a lot of obstacles in the way.
I can imagine.
But that was the internal shift and the internal decision was gifting myself just 45 minutes space to think about what I wanted.
Yeah, that you don't want to be controlled anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what the bottom line. In the end, it's you want to be the driver of your own life. Like that's it,
yeah, absolutely.
which you've done and very gracefully and very well. And I know that divorce is not easy, or separation, because I know you weren't married, but still you had children, and it's the same. I mean, you're in a marriage when you've got kids and a family and a house and commingling everything together. So tell us a little bit about what you went through in the aftermath, because we know now what you did to get there, which I have to say, and I'm going to say this, there's a theme in a lot of people that I speak to, um, who have decided to leave a marriage, that they really needed that time. They really need that time on their own. I interviewed a guy, Warren, a couple of weeks back, and he said that 30 years of marriage, to leave that is really tough, with two kids as well. But he said he himself also had to just go and sit literally for 2 days. He's like, I don't know what drove me, but I had to sit there and just cry and just be with me, because that is, and that's a gift if you're giving people that opportunity in what you're doing for women, especially because women tend to take on many roles, right?
Everything.
You're the mom, you're this, you're the cook,
Yeah.
you're this. I mean, there's 50 billion roles, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but it is by and large like that. Like, I mean, I would say 90% of especially marriages are like that. So um, that's a huge thing, just to give yourself that, me time. I need to think, what really is making me happy. Is this making me happy? Am I being my best self?
Yeah. But who am I without that? So, like you've
Right,
just said, and we talked about this, didn't we, about the identity? Like,
right.
who am I without this identity of the mom, the partner, the people pleaser? Like, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? And that takes self discovery work. That takes commitment. That takes courage. But I
Hmm.
think it's the greatest gift we can give ourselves as women. That
Right.
who am I? You take away all of that, if you take away the children, you take away the partner, you take away the job title, who are you? Who are you underneath that all?
Exactly.
So yeah, so you want it. So obviously, I made that choice. That year was really tough because there was still a little bit of control and manipulation going on there. So when I told him the choice and made the decision,
Hmm.
he made it very difficult for me. I actually lost a rented property that I was going to go for through some of the things that he kind of created,
Right.
um, and I almost gave up. I literally remember having a baby on my kind of crooked on my arm here. My little girl was potty training at the time, and I really clearly remember this. I was hanging out the washing on the line. My little girl's like weeing in the garden everywhere,
Oh my
and my
God.
baby on my arm, on my hip, and saying, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. I just have to get on with it. And it was a friend that came that day, and I truly believe in synchronicity and
Hmm.
nothing's a coincidence. And I believe that people come in your life exactly at the right time for the right reason. And a friend just drove up, and she knew what I was going through. And I said to her, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't walk away. um, I just can't do this. And she said, you are going to do it because you need to do this. You need
What a
to do
great
this.
friend.
You are dying inside. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was dying inside. She took me in the house. We searched for rental property, and everything within a week fell into place for me to move to this place. And everything was against me. And this is where I think when you make a real decision, an
Yes.
internal shift, it's like the universe has your back. And I know
Hmm.
some of your followers might not kind of believe that, but for me, that's been a massive shift for me. That when I make an internal choice, deep decision, it's like the forces of nature will come to your assistance and make things happen. And within the schools, the house, everything lined up within a week. Um, and I moved, and when I left, I think probably the biggest thing that I hear from women that are in this situation is they can't leave because of finances. They're scared about being on their own because of that situation. But I left with nothing. I
Right.
left and I walked away. He said, "If you go, then you go with nothing. You walk away from the house. You walk away from all this money." And I knew I had to do it. I had
Right.
to do it. And I was willing to do what it took. So if that meant living in a council house or living on benefits, then so what? Like, I was
Right.
going to do this, and I will build my empire myself. I
It's
will build from the bottom, and I will work my way to the top. And
Oh,
that's how I felt. That was like, I'm going to do this. And it's been the greatest gift. So lots of people told me that it was wrong for me to do that. I was silly. Solicitors said, you're crazy. But you know what? Every single penny that I've earned has been mine. And it gets me emotional. Like, I've worked to create what I can provide for my kids.
yeah.
I've created all of this. And yes, I was on benefits for the first couple of years, but I healed and I created my business and I did it my way. And
That is beautiful. No, but that is beautiful because making that hard decision led you to that confidence. Like knowing what you wanted and sticking to it, like your that internal compass saying, this is what I want, gave you that confidence. And like that confidence just kept going. Right? It's like now, okay, even though I'm going to have to sacrifice a bit, I might have to live in a council flat, I might have to do this. And for those of you who don't know what council flats, it's just government provided. Sometimes in America, people don't. I don't know what the equivalent in here is, but projects, maybe that's what they would call it here. I don't know. Um, and thank goodness that they're available as well, right? But even then, I mean, the confidence that got you through as well. So that courage, the confidence to get to where you are now. And it's all yours.
I think that is what it takes, but we've all got it in us.
Yeah.
I'm not special. I'm not. People can look and say, "Oh, well, you're lucky," or "You're special," or "No, I'm not." No, I'm not. We've all got it, and this is what I'm passionate about sharing with women. It is within us all.
Yeah.
Often we just lost it because of other people, But that spark, that passion, that desire, that courage, that motivation, you are everything. You are your motivation. You are your inspiration. You are your passion. But
Yep.
sometimes it's been buried because of everything else. And one of the things that I hope I do is help people peel back anything that's not them. So what they're left with is everything that is authentic for them in any area of their life. Authentic motherhood, authentic relationships, authentic creativity, spirituality, adventure, whatever. Like, what is your identity?
Right.
And I think when you've lost yourself in pleasing everybody else, that's a journey. And that doesn't happen overnight.
It does not. And you don't need to be in a cult to have been suppressed. And this is what I say. It's like story is extreme. However, I mean, society tells us also, we have to be a certain kind of mother, we have to be a certain kind of wife, we have to be a certain kind of friend, we have to say in a very, obviously different way, but it's constantly coming at you, even through advertisement, through social media, through what the norms are, right? And sometimes it doesn't sit well with us. I mean, even on a smaller scale, but it's still there and they add up. It's like little things that add up and you forget who you are, what your beliefs are. I mean, especially when you're completely hearing all this rhetoric like everywhere about politics, about this, and it's like so much going on. So it's easy for us to forget ourselves, especially in a role as a mom.
Totally.
And as a wife.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think circling back to this, this notion, I get this a lot too, women who are too afraid to leave because of finance. It is a sacrifice. We're not going to say that, oh, you're going to leave and you'll be totally fine and have all the money in the world. No, there is going to be, and you have to be prepared for that. But it's not forever. If your belief is there, it's the courage, it's the belief in yourself, because you know who you are. It will attract what you need, and it will attract that house. It will attract those new friends or whoever, wherever you're going, the new place, the things that you need for your children. So,
and I think that's what happened for me. I was very scared and terrified, to make those choices, but all my needs have always been provided for, and I think somehow when for me, it's like if you take care of the inches, the universe will look after the miles. I always say that you've got to say to yourself, I matter enough. I matter enough to make this choice for me. Right. I matter enough to do something that's right for me, even if people say you're selfish, even if people, because the greatest fear we have is what everybody else thinks. And we have got to care more about how we feel than what everybody else thinks.
Exactly.
And the moment that you do that, it's like things will happen for you. And everything in my life, of course, there's been hard times. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying it's been an easy breeze and an easy ride, but all these things they shape the person you are. And you have like this, you said a badass, yeah, I feel like a badass now.
You are
I
badass.
I feel like a badass now. I didn't feel like that when I left.
No.
And I think we had the conversation around coaching. I think coaching is the linchpin to help you become the woman or the man that you want to be. Because I forgot to mention this, but when I left the kids' dad, I went for a coaching session. I had 2 coaching sessions. She was running some special offer at the time, and I went and saw this coach, and she just let somebody outside of me saying to me and showing me what my future could be this way, what could be that way, teaching me to come back to my intuition, my own choices, my own decisions.
Right.
I will be forever grateful for that coach. Is why one of the reasons I became a coach, because I just believe that coaching is so powerful, and it's what's kept me on track. It's what's kept me through the crap times, through the hard times, like constantly moving in the right direction and creating a vision for my life, and empowering myself to hopefully inspire and empower other women. It's been coaching that's been the linchpin for me.
I mean, we both, we're both big fans, and I know that, and that's why we do what we do. I think that, and I do often say this, it's, therapy is important. Having really good, powerful friends like you had who say, nope, right, you're doing this, all very important to have that community around you, that village of support around you. For me, what I differentiate coaching is that I always say, like, you get the tools and they make sure you operate with those tools, right? Because sometimes we forget, and it's hard. And it's hard when the world, like you said, all the cards are stacked against you, right? So you're like, how can I use this tool when everything I see, all this is, and it's seeing through all of that, and still and continuously remembering to believe in yourself.
Yeah,
You got what it takes.
and I think that's the nub of it. That is the nub. It's the self-worth and the self-esteem, which is why I do what I do and help women with self-esteem. Because if you develop your self-esteem, you will develop your self-worth, and you develop your self-love, and you will do what it takes. And you know that you're worthy of a great relationship. You know that you're enough. You know that you can do it. You know that whatever is thrown at you, you've got something inside of you. Even on the crap days, you can still get back up and say, no, I've got what I've got what it takes. Not in a big-headed way, but it's an internal knowing that whatever is thrown at me, and that's how I feel now, because I feel like I've been through the fire. Whatever's thrown at me next, I can deal with, because I've dealt with a lot of crap. And that's like that's the kind of inner self-esteem and self-belief that goes, no, I've got this, I can do this. And I also know what I'm worthy of.
Right.
And I think, just going back to your little point around when people are scared, when women are scared about leaving, around the finances, etc. What I've realized now through coaching is a lot of it is around our own money mindset and our own beliefs. And we have got to question. That's why coaching is great, because a coach will help you delve into your own beliefs around relationships, around money, all of those things, so that when you change that, and I guess you kind of almost brainwashing your brain to believe something great, to believe amazing things about money or amazing things about relationship. That's the law of attraction. That's what you can bring back into your life. If you challenge that and change that and have a different energy around these things, but it all takes time. It takes time, it takes consistency.
It does. And there are going to be hard days, and you're going to have to see it through, right? And that's the grit. Honestly, this has been such a great conversation. Now I need you to tell everyone where they can find you, because you do fantastic work for women. And when COVID is over, I know you'll go back to doing retreats and so forth. So what's the best place people can find you?
Yeah, okay. So I have my website, which is sarahseed.com.
Which please spell Sarah Seed, just so that they can.
SARAH SEED.
Great.
.com. But it's probably, Instagram. You like, I love Instagram, and I do a lot of lives. And I like to sort of interact on Facebook and Instagram. So Instagram is I am Sarah Seed.
Hmm.
I am Sarah Seed.
I'll put it in the
Um,
notes anyway. So
yeah, but I think one of the things that I do every other month, so I've got another one coming up soon, but every other month I do an Open Your Eyes event, and that's free. It's a 3-hour session. So these women that are struggling or feeling like that, they can come to a free online event.
great.
It's a 2-hour free online event that they can join. So if they find me on Instagram or website, they'll see the next date for the Open Your Eyes. I run them every 2 months.
I, great. I mean, I will put that in the notes, and I think people do need to find you, especially if they're really stuck and they're feeling guilty. And I think it
Mhm.
starts with guilt, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
it really does, because you want something for yourself,
Yeah.
but that's not the right thing that you think you should have. And so it starts
Well,
there.
that's
And
my
the minute
tagline.
right.
That's my
Oh,
tag.
right. I did that.
My tagline is ditch the guilt,
Oh,
reclaim you, ignite your life. So
I
that's everything I do. It's like helping them address that guilt, the me guilt. I call it me guilt. Helping you
mean,
address that me guilt,
mhm.
helping you reclaim yourself, your life, and then let's ignite it. Let's feel on purpose and passion with it. So that's the kind of work that I love.
I mean, it's needed, because let's face it. I mean, in our lifetime, we do carry guilt for lots of things, and it's just not necessary. It's really not necessary, especially if you're thinking for yourself.
Yeah,
There should
absolutely.
be no guilt in that.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you.
joining me, and just sharing your story. It's such a powerful one. There's so many great tidbits in there. I'm going to re-listen to this, and some of the things you said. What was the inch and the mile? Can you say that one more time, because I love that.
Yeah, so I always say this. I always say that if you take care of the inches, the
Hmm.
universe will take care of the miles.
Love that. Honestly, I love that. Thank you, Sarah, once again, for that amazing story and for that share. Thank you, audience, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing many more. If you have a story that you'd like to share, please get in touch with me. The best way is to get me on Instagram at the Split Coach, or at Split FYI. You can also visit my website at thesplitcoach.com or splitfyi.com. Thank you. Hope to see you back.